Hello and welcome to Continental Prime here on News Central Television, reaching you live from Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Sulaiman Aled. The headlines for this hour. Authorities in northwest Nigeria free 100 women and children 12 days after they were abducted. Death toll from South Africa protests rises to 276. Military Health Department takes over management of COVID-19 in Tunisia following sack of Health Minister. Details shortly. Well, the news begins in West Africa with the rising cases of insecurity in Nigeria. Authorities in the country say they have freed 100 women and children, mainly mothers nursing infants, who were seized by bandits in the northwestern state of Zamfara. The state government says the group abducted on June 8 was released without any ransom paid. The group will now be given medical checks and debriefed before they return to their homes. For more, joining me now is Nigerian statesman and public affairs analyst Ezekiel Nyaetok. Thank you for joining us on the news, Ezekiel. Well, I understand that Ezekiel isn't on and live now. We move on to other stories here on the news. Quickly here, and two ladies have been arrested by operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency in the mid-central state of Benue while trying to smuggle 296,000 tablets of diazepam and Exol 5 across state lines. The anti-drug agency said the illicit substances were being transported from the southeastern state of Anambra to the northeastern state of Gombe. The NDLEA said it also intercepted a commercial motorcycle rider with 465 kilos of cannabis in the southwest state of Ondo. The subject of this slave trade is one of Africa's saddest conversations. However, it is deeply rooted in the history of the people of the African continent. Ghana holds several castles scattered across the continent where slaves were held before being shipped off into Europe and the Americas. News Central's Beth Joseph visits one of the castles and tells us more about where the transatlantic slave trade victims were held before their difficult journeys.
That retreat is very important because currently we have a government of
The transatlantic slave trade began during the 15th century when Portugal and subsequently other European kingdoms were finally able to expand overseas and reach Africa. The Portuguese were the first to move Africans enslaved back to Europe. After the European discovery of the American continent, the demand for African labor gradually grew, as other sources of labor, both European and American, were found to be insufficient. The majority of African captives were exported from the coast of West Africa, some 3,000 miles between what is now Senegal and Angola, and mostly from modern-day Republic of Benin, Nigeria, and Cameroon.
This is actually the youngest as well as the smallest of the three castles built along the coast of West Africa. But then we say that this is the biggest slave castle. It's the biggest slave castle because it was built at the time when the transatlantic slave trade was at the highest level. So the dungeons here were actually built much bigger to hold about 1,500 people at the same time.
But what is being done to ensure that this heritage is never lost? Sebastian, my tour guide, told me that routine checks are frequently conducted on the castle to ensure that it is always in shape and never lost. Bernard Joseph, News Central TV.
Well, many thanks, Bernard Joseph. You get the full details of that report on the Continental Prime tomorrow, as well as on all their shows. Now, joining me now to look at the security situation in Nigeria is Nigerian statesman and public affairs analyst Ezekiel Nya-Etok. Thank you very much, Nya-Etok, for joining us on the news. You know, the insecurity crisis, which a lot of Nigerians are concerned about, you have always spoken about it, and would you say the government is overwhelmed, you know, in trying to tackle this very sordid situation?
I think that the primary problem is that we have people in the helm of affairs in our governance structure that have really little or no knowledge of what government is all about on the first instance. And then, of course, following that up are the parameters, the indices, the issues that must be addressed from first principle as a primary thing. The Constitution is very clear that the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. When you put all this together, it means that whoever is coming to power must realize that the security of the people is their primary target and primary, goal for them to achieve. On account of that, they will do a reconnaissance. They will have a very robust, study of the security system, on the basis of which they will know how to attack these issues. These basic fundamentals were never followed. As a result, they toyed with security, and what could have been nipped in the bud has been allowed to fester and become a monster that right now they have no clue as to how to address it. I think that the primary problem or the foundational problem is the lack of understanding of what it means to be in government and the essence.
Well, you know, time was when you, as well as other Africans, spoke about the issue of insecurity at that point in time in Nigeria's northeast region. And now it has spread across other 5 regions. What do you think is stimulating this negative development of kidnap for ransom in Nigeria?
I'll tell you. There was the issue of Boko Haram, which was ideological, which was religious, and they tried to attack that. And then there was a second dimension to it, which was the politics we play, where we bring in thugs, we arm them to execute, our political ambition for us, at the end of which we abandon the people. That was step 2. These abandoned people now had to use the weapons at their disposal to make ends meet. And then they discovered along the way something that is called kidnapping. Kidnapping has become such an awesome enterprise, such a high pay, a high yield, that it's become no longer criminal in one sense to speak about, but it has become an enterprise. You may then call it criminal enterprise, but the catchword then is an enterprise, something that they have found to be extremely, extremely rewarding in both. So right now we have a monster called the criminal enterprise to deal with. So it's no longer so much of the ideological feeling, which say that education was bad, but now we are finding a man that will take years to sell his cattle to make as much as 1 million or 2 million or 3 million, kidnapping just one person and making 5 million, making 10 million, making such humongous amount of money, such stupendous amount of money, that it's like, wow, this is business, man. So we need to...
Allow me jump in here quickly, because sorry again to butt in here. You just said something about Boko Haram, which at that point in time said they were against Western education. Looking at what is happening now by these bandits, soft targets have been touched, schools have been shot in most parts of the northwest of the country. Do you think that this also has, a touch of Boko Haram, trying to, put its ideas and philosophy into play?
Beautiful question. Imagine somebody having two for the price of one. Number one is that while the religious, because they are also radicalized people, they are always there, the fanatics, they are there. They are against Western education. Now people have come to show them how to have two for the price of one. So it's like a win-win for them. Number one is that they are able to frighten people from going to school. Look at what's happening in the northern states of the country. And I hope our leaders really come to terms with what this prognosticates. So they are like having two for the price of one. Number one, they are making spenders wealth from this criminal enterprise. And number two, they are even succeeding in keeping people from going to school. So to them, it's a double, win for them, while to us, it's a double tragedy.
Well, certainly not a good time for Nigeria, because Nigeria is busy on all fronts. In the southeast, having IBOP to contend with. Nnamdi Kanu is already in custody. And in the southwest, the man known as Sunday Igboho, who has just been arrested. Now, do you think that the government is handling these separatist, movement or leaders the right way?
Definitely not. Definitely not. There's something about ideology that our people in government need to understand. You don't kill ideology with threats, with guns, with bombs. No, you don't. There's a little story of a young boy who was asked to kneel down, and he resisted. They told him to kneel down, and they forcibly forced him to kneel down. And he said, I may be kneeling down, but inside me I'm standing up. So when it comes to that point where you cannot address the fundamentals of the problem, Nnamdi Kanu is an expression. What is the foundation? What is the problem? What will make meaningful and educated, enlightened young people, predominantly in eastern Nigeria, to want to follow somebody like Kanu? What can you do to take the wind off the sails of Nnamdi Kanu? Exactly what is the problem? Arresting Nnamdi Kanu is forcing that child to kneel down, but inside that child is standing up. And by the time he stands up eventually, he's going to come up with the venom of you having so much oppressed him and suppressed him and subjugated him. So you are going to have, double tragedy on the long run. But if the Igbos, for instance, feel that they don't feel like a part of Nigeria, and you reach out to them as a father, and you tell them, no, the egg can't go round, but let's share it this way, let's be fair. They will say, okay, we are coming back to Nigeria. Then you go to the southwest. What is it? Let's say we're like second-class citizens. We're having people who are coming to displace us. We don't understand what that means. We've got to defend ourselves. And you say, no. If you guys, why are you coming here? You say coming to take their land, or you're coming to do your business. They say, we're coming to do our business. That's fine. Now, so as to avoid conflict, can do your business this way. You want your cows to be fed, no problem. We have a lot of land in the north. We can give you a lot of grass to eat from the north. Let's make funds available as much as possible and support peace, because they are fellow Nigerians. So there's peace. Now, you don't do those things. You go ahead, and by the time you arrest people, the question is, have you solved the foundational problem? And if you haven't solved the foundational problem, then you discover that we're just waiting. You cut the grass, then you are waiting for the rains to fall, and the grass will come up again. But if you have uprooted it, then the grass will not grow again. by arresting these, leaders of this separatist group, you are not addressing the problem. You are having an interim success, and it could get us worse. How did Boko Haram come? Their leader was incarcerated. Their leader was killed. And when you kill their leader, did you solve the problem? The answer to that means that our approaches must change and that it is better. Nigerians want to be together. I schooled in the Southeast University of Nigeria, okay, Enugu campus where I did architecture. These people just want to know that they are fellow Nigerians. How do you feel when your daughter has a classmate? Your daughter gets in JAM maybe about 280 marks. She cannot get admission. Her classmate gets 25 and gets admission. That girl is going to come back home and say, Daddy, what's going on? What explanation are you going to give this child? But instead of depriving this one, you can embark on new set of aggressive, education system that can bring this to pass. Because when these children leave school and they are playing, you can see that their acumen is the same. You can see that the northern girl is not inferior in thinking to the southern counterpart. You can see that these people are enterprising, they are cerebral, they are good at school. But the system in the north just does not give them the priority for them to
I'm afraid that's all time will allow us to take here. Ezekiel Nyaetok, many thanks for unpacking this for us.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, in other news, in east of Africa, South Sudan is at a turning point following its 10th independence anniversary. The celebration comes amidst the implementation of the provision contained in the revitalized peace agreement, which is lagging behind established benchmarks, saying that the process can't be sustained or deemed successful without the ownership of South Sudanese. The United Nations mission in the country has held a retreat to breathe new life and vigor into the quest for durable peace. Head of the agency's field office in Kwajok, Anastasia Mokangarambe, said the retreat was held in collaboration with national, international, and regional partners.
That retreat is very important because currently we have a government of national unity, which brings on board different political parties. And it's very important that each minister, each advisor, each county commissioner, each chairperson of the commission understand that they all have one mandate, which is the implementation of the revitalized peace agreement.
My sister Pauline.
For the government of Warab State and the people of Warab State, because giving them a chance, especially as partners to the agreement, to be together and address issues that usually sometimes can cause misunderstandings and conflict. Now in this retreat, we're lucky that we have consultants who are well experienced, and especially from IGAD, AU, the UN, people with a vast experience in other countries who had one time witnessed the kind of the system we have elsewhere. They have just come here to help us form a team, a working team that can deliver services to the people. Our people needs to be guided, and for that guidance needs a leadership that is cohesive.
Now, Somalia authorities investigate an incident that saw a plane crash land in Boro Hache near the Kenya-Somalia border earlier today. The Skyward Express plane, which had at least 40 passengers on board, ended up in an airstrip under construction in Boro Hache, a town neighboring Elwak in Mandera South. Mandera County Commissioner Onesimus Keita said more details about how the plane missed the Elwak airstrip would be shared after the pilot and the aviation firm reveal this information. Now we move to the south from the east, where an overloaded boat carrying food aid in northern Mozambique has capsized, killing at least 12 people. Local marine official Twakali Alvino told reporters that the boat had been carrying 26 people and 4 tons of aid from the UN World Food Programme when it sank. He asked boat owners to comply with safety regulations. The boat was traveling between the coastal city of Pemba and the island of Ibo of Cabo Delgado province. More than 30,000 people are estimated to have fled the mainland for refuge on the tiny island ocean. In Zambia, the electoral body says it is ready to hold the general elections as slated for next month. Head of Zambia's Electoral Commission, Patrick Nchindano, said the electoral body is on course to hold the August 12 general elections, adding that over 90% of the work has been done to print ballot boxes. Mr. Nchindano says that the printing of the ballot boxes will be completed this week, with shipment expected next week. He said the electoral body is ready to hold elections partially and fairly.
The infection rate is
of Malawi, Lazarus Chakwera, has fired the country's Attorney General Chikosa Silungwe. No reason has been given for the development, but the country's online media outlet said that Silungwe's contract has been terminated on Wednesday. Local media, however, is making a connection between an investigation on the office of the Attorney General over the leakage of several memos. The Attorney General becomes the second high-profile figure to be fired after the Minister of Labour, Ken Kandodo, was let go in April to abuse of COVID-19 funds. Now, the death toll from the violence that followed the jailing of former South African President Jacob Zuma has risen to 276. A minister in the president's office, Kumbudzo Ntshavheni, said 234 people had died in KwaZulu-Natal and another 42 in Gauteng. Thousands of businesses were looted in the riots that mainly affected the provinces of KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. It was a level of violence unprecedented in the country. The unrest has now largely subsided following the deployment of 250,000 soldiers. Earlier, a former disc jockey, Ngizwe Nchunu, appeared in court on inciting the violence. The staunch Zuma supporter was denied bail. South Africa's former Deputy Chief Justice Dikgang Moseneke has recommended that local government elections scheduled for October this year be postponed. Earlier in Breakfast Central today, the executive chairman of the Institute of Electoral Management Services in South Africa, Terry Salani, highlighted the Commission's position on the postponement of the polls.
Moseneke had not actually recommended that the elections be postponed. Largely because, as you may be aware, that the pandemic in South Africa has really wreaked havoc. We have had so many people dying of this pandemic, and the infection rate is going higher and higher each day. I think it is important also for me to emphasize this, that the Electoral Commission in South Africa does not set the date of the elections, and therefore does not have a constitutional capacity, or it's not competent to postpone the elections. The person who is responsible for setting the date for the election, for the municipal elections in South Africa, is the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Dr. Nkosazana Zuma. Now, it means she is the only person who can postpone the elections, because she's got the constitutional powers and legal authority to postpone or to set an election and also to postpone them.
When the news returns, we will bring you updates on the coronavirus across Africa, as Algeria is doing something to address a chronic oxygen shortage in a North African country. Stay with us. If you just joined us, you're welcome. You're watching Continental Prime here on News Central Television, live from Lagos, Nigeria. Now, we continue here in Nigeria, where 41 ghost workers have been uncovered in the country's southwestern state. Now, the government said 341 others were discovered with irregular records. The Implementation Committee of Payroll Reengineering and Validation Exercise made the declarations on Wednesday. The committee added that 290 of the 341 irregular workers have already turned in their voluntary retirement letters. It adds that 24 officers have now been retired by the concerned agencies of government in Ondo State. The committee said 40 officers were cleared and absolved of any offense. In our continued coverage of the coronavirus pandemic across Africa, Algeria has set up an emergency committee to deal with the country's chronic oxygen shortage. Health Minister Abdurrahman Ben Bouzi said the crisis committee would oversee supplies to hospitals and health facilities nationwide. He also gave instructions for hotels in larger cities to be used for patients needing oxygen treatment. The North African country cannot produce enough to meet the growing demand from hospitals dealing with a spike in coronavirus infections. In the last 24 hours, more than 1,200 new cases and 23 deaths from coronavirus have been registered. In neighboring Tunisia, the president has said the military health department would manage the country's coronavirus crisis. President Kais Said's announcement comes amid tensions in government over the handling of the pandemic. It also comes a day after he sacked Health Minister Fawzi Mehdi for poorly managing the surge in caseload. President Said's decision follows what Prime Minister Hichem Michichi calls an extraordinary level of dysfunction at the head of the health ministry. Now, South Africa aims to give at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine to 35 million people by Christmas. The South African Institute of Medical Research head, Nicholas Crisp, disclosed this on Wednesday while speaking to a parliamentary committee. South Africa has administered around 5.8 million doses of the one-dose Johnson & Johnson and 2-dose Pfizer vaccines. The pace of daily vaccinations has picked up in recent days, with the Health Ministry data showing on Wednesday that more than 250,000 vaccinations had been administered in the past 24 hours. Now, staying in South Africa, COVID-19 vaccine makers BioNTech and Pfizer say they have found a partner in the country to produce their jab locally. This will be the first of such a deal on the African continent. The pharmaceutical company on Wednesday said technical transfer, on-site development and equipment installation activities would begin immediately under the agreement. Cape Town-based BioVac, a public-private partnership, will receive COVID-19 vaccine drug substance made in plants in Europe and begin to complete the last step in the manufacturing process of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. Now, the project is set to churn out more than 100 million doses annually distributed to the 55 countries and the African Union. Now, reacting to the Pfizer-BioNTech deal in South Africa, UK charity Oxfam says it is not enough to help the massive shortfall of jabs in the poorer countries. The charity said Pfizer had sold over 90% of their vaccines to rich nations only, while doctors and nurses are dying daily all over the developing countries. Now, Oxfam says that only by sharing the technology and increasing manufacturing will help the world gain the upper hand on the pandemic. Haiti swears in new prime minister as country continues to mourn late President Giovanni Moïse. We'll have more on this when the news returns. A gilded toilet and other luxuries were found in a mansion raided by Russian investigators who say they busted a gang of corrupt police. The investigative committee website has a video showing extravagant interiors in a huge mansion among many properties raided. The investigators said traffic police allegedly took bribes for issuing fake permits to businesses. The permits allegedly enabled drivers to pass through police checkpoints with unauthorized cargoes of grain and building materials. In the southern Stavropol region, the head of the traffic police, Colonel Alexei Safanov, was arrested with 6 others. The accused have not yet commented on the charges. Haiti has sworn in a new prime minister as mourning continues for the late President Jovenel Moise. Ariel Henry, a neurosurgeon, was formally appointed to replace interim Prime Minister Claude Joseph. The latter had temporarily assumed leadership after the July 7 commando attack on Moise's private home, during which the First Lady was also severely injured. In the new government, Joseph, who agreed to stand down and cede the role to Henry, returned to his former post as Foreign Minister. Henry was installed as head of a new government to stabilize a country on the brink of chaos since the murder of President Jovenel Moise. Let's now join Tululokwe Adelero Balogun for the business news.
Hello and welcome. This is Business on NC Continental Prime. I'm Todulokwe Adelero Balogun. Nigeria is collaborating with the United Arab Emirates to track the huge illegal movement of gold from Nigeria to Dubai. Nigeria's Minister of Mines and Steel Development, Olamilekan Adebite, said the country is currently negotiating a bilateral agreement with the UAE to check all gold entering Dubai from Nigeria. He also noted that the gold had passed by the UAE police freely because, unknown to them, royalties had not been paid on the gold in Nigeria. Nigeria plans to stem the illegal gold exports, which cost hundreds of millions of dollars annually, in order to boost the country's foreign reserves. And staying in the country's power generation dropped below the 4,000 megawatts mark on Tuesday. Total generation in the country stood at 3,958.7 megawatts as of 6 a.m. on Tuesday, down from 4,270.7 megawatts on Monday. And the information came from the Nigerian Electricity System Operator. On Monday, peak generation was at 4,611 megawatts, while the lowest generation was 3,732.1 megawatts. Total energy generated on Monday was 100,974.45 megawatts, out of which just over 99,000 megawatts was sent out. Although the data did not state the cause of the decline in generation on Tuesday, gas and transmission constraints are the major challenges facing power stations in the country. We move to South Africa now, where the country's second biggest city, Cape Town, is seeking to secure more than 450 megawatts of power from renewable sources to cut reliance on state power utility Eskom. This will also lead to a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. Cape Town is looking at a range of options and expects the bulk of the electricity to be generated from solar plants, according to Kadri Nasiep, the city's executive director of energy and climate change. Cape Town's foray into securing power from alternative sources other than Eskom comes after more than a decade of intermittent electricity outages because the utility simply can't meet national demand. Last year, the government announced that municipalities could find alternative suppliers. According to a statement that accompanied its request for financing proposals, Cape Town, which uses a peak of 1,800 megawatts of electricity in winter, hopes to start generating some of its own power next year. Global foreign direct investment flows are projected to recover in 2021 after a 35% drop last year due to the COVID-19 crisis. The latest United Nations World Investment Report shows that foreign direct investment fell by a third to $1 trillion in 2020 compared to $1.5 trillion in 2019 due to the lockdowns induced by the coronavirus pandemic. The lockdowns witnessed around the globe led investors to pause investment projects and made companies to shy away from new projects. Developed economies suffered the biggest decline, where FDI fell by 58%, while FDI to developing nations dipped by 8%. Global foreign direct investment flows are projected to increase by between 10 and 15% in 2021. Even with the increase, foreign investments will still be below pre-pandemic levels. Zimbabwe's diaspora remittances jumped 58% last year to about $1 billion. This is a development that has helped the country cover gaps left by trade disruptions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. On account of the improved remittances inflows, Zimbabwe managed to record a current account surplus. The current account records the value of exports and imports of both goods and services and international transfers of capital. Zimbabwe's diaspora remittances defied a projected decrease in inflow due to the pandemic to hit record levels of about $1 billion. The World Bank, in its latest Zimbabwe economic update, said remittances contributed to the country's resilience to the regional and global trade shocks. Despite trade disruptions and the sharp decline in global economic activity caused by the pandemic, Zimbabwe's current accounts remained in surplus at 5.3% in 2020. We end the business news in East Africa, where Kenya's Lamu port has received a large cargo vessel, reaffirming its position as a vital transshipment hub in East Africa. According to John Mwagemi, Kenya Ports Authority Managing Director, the arrival of the MV Spirit from Dubai to the newly constructed berth of Lamu Port boosts the facility's ability to handle international shipping. The vessel is owned by French shipping firm CMA CGM. Lamu unveiled its first berth in May this year, opening up the facility to docking large cargo vessels that will also ferry goods within the Lamu Port South Sudan-Ethiopia transport corridor. The port is situated within the Lamu archipelago, also considered a World Heritage Site. Construction of the facility is being undertaken by China Communications Construction Company and will be made up of 32 berths when work is completed. And that's all the business news we have for you at this time on NC Continental Prime. I'm Tolulope Adelaru Balogun.
Let's now join Sean Bankole for another kind of business, at this time for the latest trending news stories from across the continent.
Hello people, it's Wednesday on NC Trends. Welcome, I am Sean Bankole. Now, Obi Kubana is back on our timelines, and this time it's because of his recent interview with BBC Pidgin, where he explained why he had a grand party for his late mother at the funeral in Oba. The 46-year-old businessman from Anambra State, Eastern Nigeria, also revealed how he made his first million, as well as his parents' role. According to him, he and his siblings had promised to throw a carnival-like 80th birthday party for their mom. But since she died at 78, they decided to direct all the planning and energy into her burial. Now, the political science graduate went on to disclose how he was introduced to the real estate business in Abuja during his NYSC, where he met a client who wanted to furnish a house. Aside from the 600,000 naira profit he got for the job, Obi was gifted 500,000 naira by the client. This, ladies and gentlemen, is how Obi Yegu made his first 1.1 million naira, which he invested into a garden beer parlor before he established Cubana, which has now gained national and international prominence. He further urged people to desist from thinking that wealth must come through illegal means. In his words, work hard, and work hard. Following this are a few thoughts online, which includes this comment from Ify, and she says, "My love for this man just increased. Work hard, pray, and be consistent in what you do, connect to people, and most especially, be nice. That's the process of molding your own soul." Also, Shibomi says, "I love the honesty in this interview. Truly respect the hustle of hardworking and tenacious Igbo men." Also, we have this comment from Wale_the solution, and it says, "Obi Kubana bust my head with the last quote that says, as evil as man be, you get the amount of love where you go show him Now you go leave your matter, face another person, no be say, now you go change them. The end with me. Now that's all on that. It's been 9 months since the Lekki toll gate shooting, which followed the nationwide mass protest against police brutality, assault and harassment in Nigeria. The NSAS protest, which started on Thursday, October 8, 2020, witnessed a violent escalation on the 9th of October 2020, when soldiers of the Nigerian army allegedly started shooting, resulting in a disputed number of deaths. Nigerians have taken to social media to honor the fallen October 20 heroes 9 months after. Let's take a few posts from Twitter. FSU starts and says, today is exactly 9 months that patriotic and concerns Nigerians to the legitimacy of their rights to ask the government for proper police system, but ended up being massacred and have their flags drenched in their blood. This is how the government responded. We won't forget, #NSAS. Reno says, why did General Buhari never acknowledge the Lekki shootings? Why didn't the Nigerian government try to gaslight people into believing the military never shot at people? Because their goal is to silence a generation who only wanted to speak up. It's 9 months today, #NSAS. Now that's from Reno. Moving on to this one from Justice for Christian Njoko. He says, who ordered the shooting of NSAS protesters at Lekki Tollgate on October 20, 2020? #Lekki Massacre. Finally on trend today, it's about the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. The police has found the Ugandan weightlifter who went missing in Japan last week after he left his hotel room at a training camp in Osaka. Julius Sekitoleko, who did not make his country's Olympic squad, left a note saying he wished to work in Japan before he disappeared. But the police tracked him on the surveillance camera and are working with Japanese authorities to enable his safe and secure return to Uganda. These have said several thoughts online. Let's see a few of them. Lex Jorgen says Japan literally has no black people or any non-ethnic Japanese really. It couldn't have been hard to find. Also, another comment from Sadigbe says, I'm guessing he just wanted to get out of there. Google how many athletes have used either World Commonwealth or Olympic tournaments just to escape their own country. Finally, we have this comment from Katie Miller, and she says lots of people done it in the London Olympics and people helped them. Some stayed in the South London gym and got free legal advice and got to stay in London. Thank you for hanging out with us on NC Trends. I am Shion Bankole. Let's now get back for the rest of the news on NC Continental Prime.
Well, you can actually get more from our website and our social media handle there. But, they lost heavily. Zambia's women's football team still made history as the first set of events began at the Tokyo Olympics today, 2 days before Friday's opening ceremony. Onyinye Obaro has more. Good to see you again, Onyinye.
Good to see you, Sulai. It's a win-win for the Zambian women team representing Africa over there. Now, in the world of sport, we begin reporting with an update from the Olympic Games as Zambia women's football team made history in their opening match against the Netherlands. This was after Captain Barbara Banda scored her first ever hat-trick at the Olympics. The 21-year-old striker, who has also been a professional boxer, becomes the first African female player to score 3 goals at the Summer Games. The Copper Queens at the final whistle lost 10-0 to the Netherlands. Arsenal's Vivian Miedema scored 4 times for the Netherlands, who were also making their debut as they set a new record for the most goals scored in one team at the Olympic Games. Meanwhile, Brisbane has been awarded hosting rights for the 2032 event, making it the 3rd Australian city to host the Summer Games after Melbourne and Sydney. President of the International Olympic Committee, Thomas Bach, made the announcement on Wednesday after a vote at the IOC session in Tokyo. The announcement was greeted by cheers from the Brisbane delegates in Tokyo, while fireworks lit up the skies above the Australian city thousands of miles away. Brisbane's victory looked a certainty after unanimously proposed as a single candidate for the 2032 by the IOC 15-strong executive board in June.
An exciting moment for the International Olympic Committee because we have with Brisbane their host, which is fully aligned with our reforms, with the Olympic Agenda 2020 plus 5. It's a very sustainable project, and it's a project with a great legacy, and it's a project from a sports-loving nation. And this is what it is about. To see the sports-loving Aussies celebrating the Olympic Games. I hope I can still make it until then either. They are in safe hands. We know about Australia and their experience in delivering great sports events. We know about their reliability, and again we know about their passion for sport and their great commitment, which has also been demonstrated here today. Great commitment for inclusion, and these are the Olympic values very well reflected in this project. So Brisbane 2032, here we go together. Here we go.
Now, still on the Olympics, Sweden's women's football team stunned world champions the United States 3-0 at the Tokyo Stadium in their opening match at the Summer Games. The USA were unbeaten in 44 games heading into the Olympics. They were knocked out by Sweden, who went on to win silver on penalties in the quarterfinals just 5 years ago. Sweden were without Chelsea's captain Magdalene Eriksson, while the USA started with key players like Rose Lasville, Alex Morgan, Tobin Heath and Lidsen Horan. Arsenal have cancelled their pre-season tour for the USA due to a number of coronavirus cases in the camp. This comes after small numbers of travelling party have tested positive after undergoing tests on Monday and Tuesday. The Gunners were set to travel to the United States on Wednesday ahead of the participating in Florida Cup alongside Everton, Inter Milan and Colombian side Millonarios. Of course, so far, Arsenal have played 2 pre-season matches in Scotland, losing 2-1 to Hibernian and drawing 2-2 with Rangers. Egyptian powerhouse Al Ahly confirmed their first team forward Hassan Al-Shahat has sustained a knee injury and will be sidelined for 10 days. Al Ahly secured the 10th Confederation of African Football Champions League title after easing past South Africa's Kaizer Chiefs in the final with a 3-0 win. Al-Shahat played the full 90 minutes as he claimed his second Champions League with Al Ahly and his 7th trophy with the red overall. It appears that the winger was hit during the game as the club confirmed the rupture of the inner ligament of his knee. And there you have it, top stories at this time in the world of sport. I am Onyechi Obaro. Over now to you, Sulai, for more updates in the news bulletin.
Many thanks, and quickly let's see what the weather is like. Massive floods in central China caused by record-breaking rainfall left tens of people dead and more than 100,000 people evacuated from their homes. More than a dozen cities in Henan province, including its provincial capital, Zhengzhou, are affected. And footage circulating online show people, waddling in chest-high levels of water on roads and train stations. For what to expect across Africa, let's go to our weather desk. That's all at this hour, but before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. Authorities in Nigeria's northwestern state of Zamfara have freed 100 women and children 12 days after they were abducted. The death toll from last week's rioting and looting in South Africa has risen to 276. Finally, we told you that the military health department is taking over the management of the COVID-19 pandemic in Tunisia, following the sack of the health minister on Tuesday. Now follow us on social media for more. We are at News Central TV. You can also download our mobile app on App Store and Play Store. You can also watch News Central live on Star Times Channel 274, Avio TV Channel 23, Vision 247, Free TV, and on YouTube. You can also get to the website newscentral.africa. I'm Sulaiman. Many thanks for watching.